Man, welcome back. Welcome back. It's been far too long. Spring break for me is over. The boys are back in town. I wish I had the meme to insert right here, but I don't have a stream deck yet. We're working on it. I have the normal guests with me, PGJ Drew. Y'all already know the format. Go through, straighten the line, and let people know where they can find all your great content.
Yeah, I'm pretty self-explanatory. You can find me on YouTube, The PG Show, or you can find me on Twitter right on the screen at The PG Show _.
Awesome, man. Jay, how you doing?
I'm doing well, doing well. Same thing for me, just coming off spring break. Just like Ty, taking a break. College basketball got a little bit of my attention, but you can find me Unfair Sports. Search for me on YouTube, as well as follow me on Twitter at Unfair Sports. I'm always floating around somewhere.
Yeah, same here. I do two different podcasts. The Under Official Review podcast, we talk all things football, whether it's NFL or college. And then for OU content, the Anything OU podcast, we do all kinds of things Sooner related, but always fun to get back on and chop it up with the boys. So
Absolutely, guys. And I swear, if people could have like an all access pass to the green room, that's where the magic happens, man. That's where the magic happens.
that's
You
the
totally
subscription. You have to pay for that one.
Get them to
Yeah.
subscribe
Yeah,
and
subscribe to
you
the
can
green
get
room.
Yeah,
There you
we'll
go.
higher gear and throw them in the green room.
We'll do the pre-show 30 minutes early so they can hear the
It's like
degeneracy.
the VIPs, when you go to the concerts and stuff,
Yeah,
they get
yeah,
the backstage pass. And
There you go.
Backstage passing it, baby.
Because we formulate a lot of the talking points just in the conversations we're having in our little catch-up session, and that's exactly how this first talking point came up today. Dylan Raiola, number one quarterback, number one prospect in the class of 2024, and this is going to be a really interesting one. Jay, you and I had talked about a while ago that Arizona State is an interesting team in the recruitment of Dylan Raiola just because of Kenny Dillingham going there. He's from Arizona, but as more time passes, that's looking like it is going to be a real tough hill for Arizona State to climb. I know when Kenny Dillingham first got hired there, he dropped a tweet basically saying, like, the guy knows who I'm talking about. He needs to stay home and we can change this. Everybody knew he was talking about Dylan Raiola. He's a dude. But the schools to watch here, first and foremost, Nebraska. Second, we'll say USC just because they got some crystal balls inserted in their favor. And finally, the Georgia Bulldogs. Now, amongst the panel, we have a little bit of a split. We have those amongst us who think that, USC is a contender here, and those that think this is a straight Nebraska battle. This is going to be a fun one to watch. PG, I'm going to start it off with you because you seem adamant that he's going to go to Nebraska, and your reasoning is there. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, so, one, with everything that Matt Rule's doing at Nebraska, and he has a lot of proven history behind him to be able to come into a program that's kind of in dire need to be turned around and turn it around. Look at what he did at Baylor. True. You can't inherit any worse situation than what he inherited at Baylor. Yep. And he turned it into, a powerhouse in the Big 12. Yeah, they have their down years, but Baylor's a team you don't want to play. Now, it's interesting because Dylan Raiola actually was on campus during the dead period because of his uncle that is at Nebraska, which he can technically visit his uncle and talk to him. Now, he can't talk to the head coach. He can't do all that, but he can be with his family. That gives them an advantage. He's also going to be out there for Nebraska's enormous junior day or whatever you want to call it on March 25th, where let me just read you some of the recruits they're going to have out there. Dylan Raiola, Brandon Baker, Nathaniel Fraser, Gatlin Bear. They're going to have one of their commits out there, Roger Gradney, Grant Bricks, Peyton Lewis, Riley Sunram, Gage Ginther, Williams Winery, Nigel Smith, Carter Nelson, Jacob Smith, Davion Hall, Isaiah Mosey, Michael Boganowski, Caleb Benning, Ryan Wingo, Ryan Pelham, Andrew Sprague, Jared Smith, Mario Buford, Ian Flint, Thomas Heiberger, and Isaiah McMorris. So there's a lot more hype around this program than just Dylan Raiola. Now, I am not naive to think that Nebraska is going to go out here and land 5-star defensive linemen, borderline 5-star defensive line. But I think they have a good shot to land guys like Carter Nelson. I've been on the Dylan Raiola train. Grant Bricks, one of the most coveted offensive linemen in the country. So Nebraska's got a lot going for them, and I like where they're sitting. I think they've got a competitive advantage over USC and Georgia, and I get it. I get what Will Fong and them are saying. I think they're kind of just going off the Dylan hype. I don't think a lot of people really know where he wants to go, but I would say it's a really safe bet to go put your money on Nebraska. And if that happens, this Nebraska program's put on a clock. And I would say it's probably in 2 or 3 years for Matt Rule to get it turned around if you land a talent like Dylan Raiola.
I mean, that would be, can you imagine a way to kick off your tenure as the Nebraska head coach? You learn the number one, not even the number one quarterback. That right there is astronaut, the number one player in the nation. And he is a dude. Now, Jay, we were talking before, and you think this USC threat could be a real threat and one to watch. So talk to me about that.
Now, see, when there's smoke, there's fire. And when it comes to having Lincoln Riley out there and a quarterback, there's no doubt in my mind that he is probably in the mix, especially if Will Fong is saying that he is. And I totally get what PG's saying. It makes sense. I can totally see the influence of family there at Nebraska helping them win over Dylan. But we're talking about the coach that's had, 3 Heisman Trophy winners and a 4th that was a finalist.
And that's tough to argue with.
And all he's going to do is keep stacking to where these quarterbacks going to want to come to his school just to win a Heisman. I mean, you're immortalized at that point. Once you're added to the Heisman house and you're in those Nissan commercials, everyone will know you forever in some capacity. And to me, that for some of these kids, especially with the way NIL is, it's that individual accolade. It's a big deal. Plus, his quarterbacks are actually looking pretty good in the NFL. I mean, Baker hasn't been the best yet. But when he got some good coaching, he looked kind of good. Kyler, when he's not undermining his coach, he looked pretty good. Jalen Hurts went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, whenever the new Call of Duty isn't coming out, Kyler's balling.
Easy.
Right.
Right.
And even Jalen Hurts, looking at the way he played when a coach actually built a scheme around him, he looked like a real good quarterback. And so my point is, I think that Dylan's going to look at that and take that mindset of, I want to be developed to be able to go to the NFL. And NFL teams do look at Lincoln Riley's coaching and look at his ability, and they're still bought in. Regardless of how these quarterbacks have done, they're sold on his quarterbacks being successful at the next level, because most of them, especially scouts, recognize that it's not always on the quarterback. It's still a part of the coaching staff's job to go out there and bring out the best of their ability. If they screw it up, it's on them. So on that part, I think that gives USC an opportunity. I'm not saying they'll win his services, but that gives an opportunity. My only question is, and me and Drew talked about this a while ago, he's in Phoenix. Why ain't these Arizona schools winning them? None of these Arizona kids ever stay in state, and it is just baffling that they cannot win their services.
Because they keep having the turnover there. And these kids want stability. They want, like you just said, a track record, like Lincoln Riley. And for me, I'm kind of in between. And so I'll kind of give my point about, quarterbacks and what they're looking at. And I could see both PG and Jay's point, but it all comes down to, what does Dylan really want? The family piece is great. Matt Rule building what he's building at Nebraska, certainly nothing to sneeze at there. If you're able to turn around Temple and Baylor, you can certainly turn around Nebraska with the resources and things that they have up there. And they have the money, they have the resources, they have a passionate fan base, alumni.
They got the want to now, yeah.
They've got the hey, let's kick it in gear type of mentality. But at the same time, Jay does make a good point with with Lincoln Riley and his track record and what he's done with quarterbacks. So at the end of the day, he's got 2 good options, and I think it is a Nebraska USC showdown, and it's ultimately going to come down to what fits him the best, and what does he ultimately want to do. Because Matt Rule and that offense has had some success with some quarterbacks, but certainly nothing to the level of Lincoln Riley and what he's done through his obviously 7 years at Oklahoma, and then now with Caleb Williams doing his thing, and then potentially you're going to have, Malachi Nelson right behind him and everything like that. So that's another opportunity to showcase another quarterback. So, hey, it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting to see where he ends up, because I think either way, he's going to have success and a bright future.
Yeah, but if you're Dylan Raiola, and I get it, he said that he was willing to sit 2 years if he absolutely needed to. But why would you go sit 2 years behind Malachi Nelson? And, you're probably going to get 2 years to play because he's probably going to redshirt you. So you're going to get a redshirt junior year and then, or however that works, right? Redshirt junior, redshirt senior, or whatever. Or no, it'd be redshirt sophomore, redshirt junior.
Yep.
Regardless, you could go to Nebraska and probably, I mean, if you're that good,
Yeah.
and you know that Nebraska is going to have the coaches to go out there and develop you, because again, he's been around the program for a long time.
Sure.
You got Raiola legacy people out there.
Yeah.
I mean, he's gonna get endorsement deals like crazy.
Well, and here's the thing too about that is he already knows what they're selling. Like I'm sure his uncle has been in his ear, been in all this. And here's a piece, and I like what Eric said here. Let's not forget the Georgia Bulldogs. I mean, they're still got a little chance out there, and that would be a great opportunity for him to say, "Hey, I want to do my own thing, build my own, way of going. Come off the Lincoln Riley path, come off of my family path, and go see if I can do it. Not seemingly on my own, but go maybe try to win a national championship." And like I said earlier, it's ultimately going to come down to what exactly does he want? Does he want championships? Does he want the notoriety of the Heisman? That type of thing. Does he want to go, possibly win games and help change the Nebraska program back to where it was? I mean, a lot of great options out there for this kid, and it'll be interesting to see ultimately where he, ends up.
Yeah. So I have
to add to that. I think the one thing to truly recognize is what's going to get this kid to the NFL.
Yep.
Because national championships really get you to the NFL. For the most part, it honestly doesn't. Even with great performances, a lot of the times you don't get that. I mean, well, we'll question is Stetson Bennett because of his size, which is rightfully so, and he's 25 years old. But sitting for a couple of years, sometimes it's not a bad thing, especially if you can walk out there and then that next year go. You could take some of the miles off of your body by not playing
The wear and tear, absolutely.
Yep, and that's 100%. A big deal for some of these players too.
Yep.
Some of them are recognizing that if you put too many miles on your body too early, that's dropping you a little bit in your draft,
especially running backs.
Exactly.
Running backs.
So having the opportunity to play 1 year and be dominant that 1 year, especially with good coaching, I think that's something he'd be willing to do. And so that's why USC, even Georgia I think if you go to Georgia, he may end up taking a starting job because I don't know who their quarterback is next year. And everybody has question marks about who's going to play there.
I think that's the guy they're looking at is Carson Beck.
So yeah,
but even then after that, he's still got a great opportunity to come in and start, But
right. He could compete for that next year.
Sure.
That's something that could happen.
I say he's got a lot of options.
Same thing with Nebraska. Same thing with Nebraska. He can go up there and he could potentially compete and start there. And so the question is, does he want the wear and tear on his body, or does he want the coach that's honestly proven to have 2 number 1 picks in a row, and his current quarterback will be the number 1 pick next season? I mean, that's 3 number 1 picks at quarterback. Yeah. It's kind of hard to argue it to me.
Yep. Sure.
No. Yeah. I mean, here's the deal. I have 2 commitments coming on the show. One of them is going to Nebraska. And I know for a fact Raiola is recruiting guys to Nebraska because this is one of the guys that has been talked to while he's been on visits while Raiola is there. So
all right.
It's hard to say that he's going to go somewhere else when you're hearing that he's recruiting guys there. Now, he could be doing that to kind of see how many guys can I get to Nebraska? Do I want to go play there if I can get these guys? He might want to get a foundation built before he commits there. That might be a thing. But with everything that Nebraska has going for them, I just don't see USC or Georgia as a viable option at this point. I mean, hence, he decommitted from Ohio State, a place that Eric right here said would have put him in the NFL, especially with all of the wide receiver talent that he would have had around him. Because he's not getting that same talent at USC or Georgia. I hate to say it. He's not. He would have had much better talent at the wide receiver position at Ohio State.
That's a good point, Eric, about the Ohio State point. See, Drew, I'm exactly with you, man, because PG, all your points you make, I look at it and I'm like, oh, that's completely logical.
Valid. Absolutely.
Jay, every point you make, I 1,000% agree with, right? It makes complete sense.
You could definitely see reasons for both. And even a little bit of Georgia.
Georgia.
Yeah.
Georgia makes sense to me as well.
Very, very good, compelling, reasons. And he's getting these pitches, all over. And it's hard to say no to all these schools,
Yeah, this is going to be a really fun one to watch. Now, Renewed Memories has a question, and I'm going to toss this to the 3 Oklahoma fans. PG, I'll start with you. Peyton Pierce and Sammy Brown thoughts, and I'm assuming he's saying in reference to Oklahoma, because both of these guys being recruited by Oklahoma. So, start off
Was
with
was this guy sitting in our green room listening to our conversations? Because I literally said
secret
Yeah.
subscriber.
Yeah, I was like, if they land, I said there's a good chance Oklahoma could land 3 5-star defensive linemen in this class, and if they do that, what else are you going to land 5-star wise? Because I don't think those will be the only 5-stars they get. You've got Sammy Brown, Micah Hudson. You've got Edric Houston, KJ Bolden. You've got other 5-stars that Oklahoma has been softly in the mix for, maybe not highly talked about, but softly in the mix for. And those could ramp up quickly with Oklahoma. We've seen that happen. And so I'm like, if Oklahoma lands 3 5-star defensive linemen, Peyton Pierce and Sammy Brown, my goodness, like what kind of class is Oklahoma looking at? Because you're set at the linebacker position for several years with Sammy Omosigo, Lewis Carter, Phil Picchiotti, Peyton Pierce, Sammy Brown. I mean, you've got a real problem now with, okay, who's starting, who's playing, which is a good problem to have. Like you always
great problem to have. I think Peyton Pierce is a realistic one. Personally, Clemson to me, I think they're going to be real tough to beat for Sammy Brown. They're going to be real tough.
I personally have said it. I think Sammy Brown.
Yeah, you and I have talked about this.
And KJ Bolden, I think they're going to be Clemson guys. I think your Edric Houston's going to go to Georgia. I think that's just kind of how it's looking. But hey, Peyton Pierce, if you guys have not went and watched film on this or any film from his camps, Peyton Pierce could be a guy that sneaks into 5-star territory by the end of the cycle. He's that good. Good.
He's spectacular. But I was saying in the 2024 class when we were in the green room, I was saying how I'd started going through here recently, going through the list and watching all the film I could find on these guys. And then just kind of, I have my notebook. I just kind of write little quips like, oh, this dude is great here. Man, this 2024 class, guys, it is loaded. I know I say this every year, but 2023 and 2024 feels like a little disproportionately loaded. Right? I mean, these are great.
Well, I'd say 2023 was loaded on the offensive side of the ball. 2024, I think, is loaded on the defensive side.
I think they're both, man. I mean, you look at 2023, you have Kermani McLean, you have Caleb Downs, you have Keon Keeley, David Hicks. I mean, that's just in the 5-star status.
No.
These past two classes have been spectacular.
But with 2024... I think we talk about a lot of these top end guys like KJ Bolden, Colin Simmons, David Stone, which I mean, Edric Houston, Williams, which are all Oklahoma guys that I think, a lot of Oklahoma fans look at. But there's a lot of guys in the defensive class for 2024 that are not talked about, like Justin Scott, Kobe Black, Charles Lester, Elijah Rushing. These are all guys that I really like out of this 24 class that I don't think the 23 class had that kind of deep talent on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, even when you get out of 5-star status,
Jordan Renaud was winning MVPs over 5 stars in the 2023 cycle.
I get that, but I mean, look at the defensive backfield talent that's coming out in 2024. I mean,
Makari Vickers wasn't a 5-star. He was like your 6th best safety.
Again, you're mentioning just Oklahoma guys, though. Like guys,
no, I've just messaged Jordan Renaud. He's a Bama guy.
Jordan's a Bama.
Yeah.
Yes,
Bama but player, he just for a while though. That was a guy that we talked about for Oklahoma.
No doubt. Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
My mistake.
Yeah, I'm like we're talking about guys that have been talked about in the Bama, Alabama, Oklahoma recruiting. I want to look at guys they're not looking at, that they're not in the mix for. There's a lot of really good guys. I think 2023 was your heavy offensive side of the ball class. I mean, mainly just look at all the quarterbacks that were in that class. And then I think for 2024, you're going to look at this as more of a defensive class. And then in 2025, it looks like it might be a healthy mix, but it's still too early to look at 2025.
Yeah, 2025 rankings aren't even finalized. They're like at what, number 59?
I think 60? they have an offensive lineman as like the number 1 recruit in the class right now, which would be
who?
Some dude he's out of Maryland, I think.
Which recruiting cycle? Which
I haven't even looked.
It's 2025. His name's David Sanders. He's out of Providence Day School in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay.
Number 1.
Yeah,
but again, it's 2025, so it's still.
And they're all 3 stars. They're all 4 stars basically at this point. Nobody knows.
Yeah, they're going to go to these more of these elite camps and all this stuff and everything like that.
But
yeah,
but no, on your question though, that was posed about Peyton Pierce and and Sammy Brown. I come up to chime in. I think we get one of the two. I totally get that the Clemson piece is tough on the Sammy Brown portion, but Venables was recruiting him heavy when he was young. And so they
True,
actually
but
have
that's
a
why it doesn't
relationship
make
from
any
Clemson,
sense to
too.
me why Clemson is still so far in the head.
Yeah.
Like if you talk to
Proximity.
Cats, yeah,
Proximity.
but
You want to know why?
if your coach goes, you'd think that there'd be a better continuation of like
think it's
you talk to
proximity.
Cats in that area.
Mhm.
He is
No, I get
about
it.
Clemson.
I get it.
Wes Goodwin. Remember the name, because that dude is going to come on the recruiting scene like nobody's business. Wes Goodwin.
Yeah,
That's
he's
why
a
Clemson's
beast.
still in it.
He's
That
a
makes
beast.
sense.
That's been my only thing I've noticed with Sammy Brown. I'm not saying OU's not going to win it, but you would think with Todd Bates, okay, it's just like this. Todd Bates offered Peter Woods. He was all on Peter Woods. Peter Woods is at Clemson.
Well, so I can't remember if it was Parker or Brandon that said this the other day, but it was actually a very good point. You know how hard it is for this staff to come in from Clemson to Oklahoma and in 1 year try to convince these
it's
kids
so
that Oklahoma
hard.
is a better place after they sold them on Clemson for so many years. So it's
That's
like
the problem.
we
yeah.
all had this expectation that Todd Bates and all these guys were going to come in and have this great class their first year. No, because they sold those guys on Clemson. So it's going to be hard for them to come in.
Well, and
and
that's why you saw the 23 class. That was why it was so strong, is because they had a chance to establish their foundation a little bit. They weren't in a rush to, get things together, put schemes out there and help each other learn the playbook. It was, hey, we're calmed down. We got a year behind us, and we're settled in, and now it's boots on the ground, and we can roll with this thing. So
Yeah.
that's why you're starting to see more of a foundational piece added, and then if we have success on the field this year, look out.
Yeah.
Well, and Oklahoma was in a good position anyways for 2024
Sure.
because you guys had David Stone, Caden Durham,
Yeah.
Stacey Gage, all these. And by the way, a name that in Oklahoma that a lot of people aren't paying attention to, Bergen Kaisar, a defensive lineman out of Santa Fe High School. He just set records in powerlifting for the state. So I don't think he's not going to stay
Wow.
underrated for very
he's
long.
He's a good. I've had some friends that are in the coaching circles that have heard the name mentioned, and you're going to start seeing a little avalanche of things starting to pop off for him. So
But 2025 and 2024
let me step
for
in here real
Oklahoma.
quick because I don't disagree. Because you're right. Like it is going to take time, right? You were just selling someone on Clemson. Now you're selling them on Oklahoma. Nick Williams left Georgia to A&M, and within 3 weeks, 2 5-stars were with him.
Yeah, but where did he go?
because they were getting
A&M.
bags. Money talks.
Sure, but he did the same thing when he got to Georgia, right? Like when he was hired at Georgia, all of a sudden, boom, there was Bear Alexander, like that. So I hear you. And once again, I'm not saying that Sammy Brown isn't going to go. I just think it's really interesting that Brent Venables and them are still recruiting him very well, and he is still glued to Clemson. That's why I bring up Peter Woods, is because Todd Bates is regarded as one of the best defensive line coaches in the country. I mean, we talk about him. We talk about the cat up there at Ohio State. We talk about Freddie Roach. He was all Peter Woods, and Peter Woods went to Clemson over Bates at Oklahoma, over Freddie Roach in Alabama. And it's just wild to me that Sammy Brown, while having the best linebacker coach in the nation, Brent Venables, talking to him is still like so high on Clemson. Peyton Pierce, though, I think y'all land.
I wouldn't say that he's so high on Clemson that it's just out of possibility realm. I mean,
there was an article
Sammy
here
Brown,
very soon that said it's like they would be shocked if it's not Clemson
Well,
or Georgia. So I think it is pretty
he's
high
talked
on
about,
that.
especially after his junior day visit, like how impressed he was with Clemson, how much he loves the place. But he's been to Oklahoma. And again, you're talking about that relationship with Venables. So this is the second year. So it's like they've had a little bit of time to try to sell these recruits on Oklahoma now. And again, I think it comes down to with what Drew said. I think with like Sammy Brown, KJ Bolden, you might see them commit to Clemson or Georgia or wherever. Get those spots just in case, but there will always be a spot for those guys at Oklahoma if they want to commit. And I think it's going to come down to on-field success, right? Do they see a significant change this year in what Venables and the staff?
I think some of those players, that's why you're starting to see them wait, and they're not ultimately making. That's why a lot of these guys are not already committing. Obviously, it's early in the year, but they want to take these official visits and see the play in person, see what you're matched up again, the big time games. Maybe, you'll see some early visits from some guys, but you'll also see guys later in the season going and taking their officials after. Obviously, the Champ View barbecue is a huge thing for us and everything like that. But you're going to start seeing guys really do their homework and really just enjoy the process. And that's why I tell guys a lot of times that are getting recruited, guys that I've coached and stuff like that, is, hey, don't forget to have fun. There's a lot of pressure on you. There's a lot of, different angles and different things pulling you your way. But ultimately, man, enjoy this because it only happens once, transfer portal, but coming out of high school, it only happens once. So I think it gets lost sometimes with these recruits because we want to talk about this and so that. But, man, it's tough when you're one of these kids and you like the attention, you love the attention, but at the same time, you're ready for it to be done. And all these kids want to do is just try to better their future. And, for me, I love seeing recruits. I love Oklahoma getting, 5-star talent and top 5 recruiting classes. But at the end of the day, these kids making the best decision for themselves is ultimately the win for me. So wherever they go. So.
But to Neo's point, it's not good enough just to win games for Oklahoma in terms of the players' eyes, because you can go have the same seasons you had with Lincoln Riley, and those defensive players still weren't giving Oklahoma the look that maybe they could have been giving Oklahoma. Oklahoma has to go show significant improvement on the defensive line and that linebacker position. I think the secondary, you're good because
I like y'all secondary a lot.
I think they played really well last year, and I think they're going to play really well again this year. They're deep.
And with the defense, it complements each other. When you have a really good pass rush, when you have a good up front, and guys that are getting to the quarterback, your back end looks good because there's tip balls in the air, there's interceptions, there's turnovers, there's things like that. And so, and the same could be said for, tight coverage. Everything's locked up down the field, and these guys can get to the quarterback, get sacks and force fumbles and all kinds of stuff. And so when you have a balance on defense and linebackers going and free flowing and making tackles in the backfield, everybody eats, and everybody comes to the party and it helps each other out. And so, yeah, if those 3 levels can complement each other, you're gonna see success at every spot on the field.
Yep. I want to talk about this one right here real quick. Corey Baker asks, you think Milroe will work out? I don't think he's all that good. It's tough, Corey, because his skill set is there. He's got the ability. And actually, I went back and I was watching the Arkansas game when he came in relief of Bryce, and he made some throws that were like pure anticipation. Geez, Louise. They were pure anticipation. Yeah, Thank you. That's the word I was trying to go. And then
here on through the haze,
ditched it.
There we go.
Anticipatory throws. But I don't think that they cultivated an offense that was exactly designed to his skill sets. I think whenever they started the game against Texas A&M during the first 15, 25 scripted plays, Milroe looked solid. Once it kind of got into the game flow and the beginning script went out the window, it left some to be desired. Now, will he work out? I think that one of the things that is so interesting is when I look at Tommy Rees and what he did at Notre Dame, both of these quarterbacks at Bama, there's former 5-star Ty Simpson and then Jalen Milroe, both of their abilities actually work in this Tommy Rees offense. And so it's not like Alabama hired an offensive coordinator and I had a more clear picture of who I thought would be the starting quarterback. I actually have less of an understanding who I think is going to be the starting quarterback because I think both of them fit. Now, I saw your other comment that you said, Corey, you said you don't know that anybody at Bama is as good as Quinn Ewers, talking about Bama playing Texas. And I'll give you this. I don't know that anybody at Bama has the upside of Quinn because, I mean, we've talked about this, right? It is what it is. His upside is unreal. If Quinn can get the consistency together, we know what kind of quarterback he's going to be. He's sensational. So I'm not going to say anybody I haven't seen is better than a starting quarterback, right? Drew,
here's an interesting thing about Alabama. For me, the quarterback position has always somehow, some way been solidified. You've always had a guy back there that can run the offense, that can, control the tempo, whatever the case is. Here's my biggest area that I want to watch is, for the first time, is your skill positions on offense, especially receiver, and then running back. who's gonna jump in there and do their thing, because and it's Alabama, so it's the next guy up, and somebody's going to emerge. But it's going to be interesting to see who is the next guy, especially out there at wide receiver, who's the next big play type of guy and everything like that. And so for me, I'm not as much worried about the quarterback position as I am. Obviously, offensive line is always a big deal because you can't do anything without your offensive line. But out there at Z and X and all that, and who's the guy underneath that's going to be able to, your Slay Bolden, your, somebody like that that's going to be able to get you the yards that you need on 3rd and 6 or whatever the case is. But who's going to stretch the field for Alabama this next year? And somebody will. But
well, I'm going to go in here real quick, and then Jay, I'm going to pass it to you. And then our very special guest is joining us. I'm actually going to get him in right now. Guys, everybody in chat, welcome. Super excited to have him. R.J. Moore Malone. R.J., thank you for being here with us this evening, man.
No problem, man. What's going on, guys? How y'all doing?
Man.
What up? What up?
Kicking it, talking some college football, man. What are you up to?
Man, not much, man. Just got to do one of my sessions, man. I'm a personal trainer down here, so I just got through one of my sessions. And so I told him, man, cut me off for the rest of the day, man. I'm going to hop on here, man, and holler at y'all for the day, man. I'm excited, man.
No, I'm excited to have you. It's a damn good thing I don't work out with you, because you would just be so highly disappointed in me. It would be just sensational. Let me tell. Hey, you need someone to come. The people you're training, I can make them all feel better about themselves. You throw me out there next to them working out, I'll make them feel like they're Rocky Balboa in the cut. They'll be ready to go.
I tell you what, man, I got some regular clients, not just athletes that are older than you, man. So I don't know. I think you might be all right, man.
Oh, I'm not all that old. I'm just out of shape. That's the problem. I wish I could claim my age was the problem. But before we really start going in talking to RJ about his past experiences in college football, I did want to talk about this a little bit. I think he dropped the connection. We'll get him right back in here. At X wide receiver, I'd be looking at Malik Benson.
Yeah.
Z, Ja'Cory Brooks. You can flip those. Whether ZX,
Corey Brooks it'd be one that's going to probably could emerge, yeah. But for me, as an outside looking in, I love watching Alabama. You obviously, have a more of a pulse on it than I do. It's just, as a college football fan, always fun to see who's next in line for the Crimson Tide at some of those spots. So
yeah, and then the one that I'm most confused about is probably wide receiver. Why there is a slate of cats who could just have a great season. We're talking Kobe Prentice. We're talking Isaiah Bond. We're talking Kendrick Law, Cole Adams, right? Coming from Oklahoma.
Yeah, my guy. 918, baby.
Real good. So there's a lot of excitement. But guys, we need to get in touch with our guest real fast. RJ, I want to talk to you, man, about your experience recruiting, because we've gone 32 minutes right now specifically talking about recruiting, these recruiting battles. So tell us first and foremost about yourself, where you played, introduce yourself to all the people, and then we'll kind of start talking about what it was you were looking for whenever you were going through your recruiting process.
Obviously, my name is RJ. My real name's Reggie. RJ, just because I was in the chat. He caught me in the chat, so that's why he got that on there. I played at University of Kentucky, University of Louisville. I actually was a walk-on at Kentucky. It's a very long story.
Oh, might have dropped him again. My connection is going in and out. Hopefully we can get him right back in there. But yeah, one of the things while he's loading back in, he was telling me before we were in the green room, the reason why I wanted to have him on, RJ was kind enough to comment during one of our streams, and we were talking about the differences that you could expect in OU's move from the Big 12 to the SEC. What is it like changing conferences? And RJ was in the chat, and he actually commented, and he's like, yo, I played in the SEC, and then I played in the ACC, so I have a personal understanding of the differences, and he wanted to come and speak on it. So I'm really excited to get him back in here and have him talk to us. Hopefully we can get that sorted out. But yeah, well, in the meantime, we have some people saying Bates is a great recruiter. Yeah, Bates is a great recruiter.
There's a whole conversation going on about this. I don't know if you've seen it, but he's talking about guys at Oklahoma. He's talking about the guys that Oklahoma's missed. Listen, By Job was not a miss. He wasn't coming to Oklahoma.
Yeah, By Job wasn't going to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I can say that is outside looking in.
Edric Hill is the only miss because the staff thought they had better guys, and so they just kind of overlooked him a little bit, right? That's the only miss on this list. Jordan Renaud, his final two, Alabama and Oklahoma, he went with a situation that was a little bit more comfortable, but really he could have succeeded at either place. And for OU to be in a recruitment like that, down to the last two with Bama, that's not a miss. And then Hicks was going to be a Sooner before, well, let's be honest. Hicks just got a bag, and that's not on Bates. It's really not because
I think there's some other one. I mean, obviously everybody can point to Colton Vasek, probably one of those that maybe should have been, whatever the case is. And then obviously, who else am I missing that went to Texas?
Tahusili Akana, but that one,
Akana, yeah. So those are on the fence. I could see the argument for those potentially, but yeah, the other ones, yeah. So.
Yeah,
I think the Akana one that was a miss on the young coach because that was Miguel Chavis' main guy. But shoot,
it's a learning experience.
Winning this battle right now with Williams and Nwaneri like he is, and he won PJ Adebayo. He was the primary.
Well, and then also you have other guys coming in the transfer portal as well, and Deshaun McCullough and stuff like that. So it's not. You're trading that with some good experience, stuff like that. So it's really not as big of a loss as we ultimately thought it would be, and especially if we get some of these guys in the 24 class, and building that depth there too. So, but yeah, it certainly we're certainly in a good spot.
No, Eric, I will argue this all day long. Renaud is not on Bates. Like, he had us in the final two on that commitment. I mean, Renaud literally came to Oklahoma before he made that commitment. Like, it's not a miss on Bates. It's not a miss.
Well, I think I can't. I think this is a semantics argument because, in my opinion, if you are in on somebody and you don't get them, you missed. So by definition, you missed. But like, is it on Bates? No.
The good thing is you ended up in the finals. That's probably the only.
Yes, it's not a miss in terms of like this is on Todd Bates. He dropped the ball. No, he had two of the best defensive line coaches in all of college football sitting down in his living room. He was winning no matter where he picked. This man was set up to win. Beautiful situation. But I want to get back onto this. RJ, go ahead, man. Talk to us about your experience at Kentucky and then over at Louisville.
Yeah, man, my bad, man. I got like retarded weak Wi-Fi with so.
Oh, you're good.
So yeah, I ended up walking on to Kentucky. Transferred to U of L, man. Tore my ACL twice when I was at U of L, so it kind of hampered me, man. So I was like, okay, I might be done with ball, man. So I really just had like a period of reflection. Then I just kind of turned up on my workouts, man, and I ended up going playing arena ball in Georgia with the Columbus Lions. That I ended up getting a tryout with the Cleveland Browns. So I got a lot of experience, man. I really it's really about, my ability to kind of like push everything to where it needs to be pushed as far as my work ethic, and the lesson that I learned on each level, right? Because like I was telling you, like on each level, like, SEC, ACC, like you just learn so much from, a couple different, sources. So it's really been a blessing, man. Like I said, I'm training right now. I got a couple kids that, like y'all even talk about on here. Like I think a couple weeks ago, y'all was talking about Keontae Goodwin, the lineman.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
No, that's funny though, because I was talking about Keontae Goodwin. He is a monster. 6'7", 6'8", 350 pounds. I mean, he is huge.
Yeah, that's one of my kids. Ended up trading him a little bit. JJ Weaver down in Kentucky is one of the kids I ended up touching a little bit. Wandale Robinson, y'all see him in the league. He was one of the first kids that I trained that actually made it in the NFL. So that presented another side of football to me. Like, okay, you ain't just got to play now. You can coach and train and just kind of see your kids, hit on different levels. So it's really probably more fulfilling for me to coach and train than it was to play. Obviously, I'm still playing. I'm playing arena right now, but the coaching and training aspect of it is so cool, man, because I get to see the other side of it. You know what I'm saying? And I get to see these kids actually developing, a skill that they wanted, and to hear them tell me, I was having a conversation with JJ Weaver, my boy at Kentucky, a couple weeks before he went to Kentucky, man, and I told him, I was like, honestly, little bro, I think the best situation you're gonna be in, man, let me know. It wouldn't happen to you. Let me know. I was like, bro, when you go to Florida, let me know how you feel about that. Because, like, the swamp is crazy. I don't know if any of you got, like, that's just a different animal. When you walk out and you just got people doing the little chomping thing at the top of your head, it's crazy. It's like the most retarded this atmosphere. And he called me that. He was like, you were right, coach. You were right, man. That was crazy. And I'm like, I told you, man. I told you.
Yeah, man, that's wild. Now, one of the things I was super interested in talking to you about, we have 3 Oklahoma fans here on the panel tonight, and PG, Drew, and Jay. And actually, Drew coaches football, so y'all have that in common. But one of the things, Oklahoma is about to move from the Big 12 to the SEC. RJ, one of my best friends played for TCU. He was the safety, Denzel Johnson, and I remember they played Arkansas, and he came over to my apartment that weekend whenever he was back, and I said, what's the difference in Big 12 and SEC? He said, everybody in the Big 12 is good and fast. He said, the SEC, they're good, fast, and big.
Right.
And that was like his synopsis. What did you notice from playing in the SEC to the ACC? What's the real difference between SEC ball and the other conferences?
The biggest, there's 2 differences. One of them that I told you about is coaching. Your best coaches in the SEC. Your most tenured coaches in the SEC, that's for a reason, right? Everybody else will have a coach every other 6, 7 years, 4 years, but you go to SEC and it's tenure. Like the 2 top programs in the SEC are tenured, right? Saban and Kirby, you know what I'm saying? Like, so it's coaching, and it's also talent as far as not just your starters, but your backups and then your third strings. Like, so when I was at Kentucky, you know, you playing against, in practice, you're practicing against guys that are better than the starters at another conference. Like, it's unbelievable. Like, the linemen are just retarded fast. And I remember I was playing with a kid in Florida, and I was like, bro, what do y'all do out there to make, like, you like 6'8", 400 pounds, like, how you running a 4'9", 4'8"? And he's like, we chase rabbits. Like, literally, they put them in a box and they make them chase rabbits. Like, seriously, like, that's the difference between SEC and everybody else, is the front line and the depth.
I was gonna mention that too, because I've had friends and stuff like that have played in the SEC and stuff like that, and they say that the upfront offensive and defensive line is where there's a drastic difference in big bodies moving fast, and it's
and it's not even a contest. Like, like I said, you playing the backups is better than your starters. If you come from another conference, I done practice against people that are better than you all week. So, I mean, not to down anybody or nothing like that, but that's just kind of, I guess, the way that they recruit. Like, they know that they have to have these guys, like, the speed and the athleticism, and that's the way that they coach it. You know what I'm saying? You go to another conference, like when I was in the ACC, there were certain things we did at U of L that we didn't do in Kentucky. You know what I'm saying? So it was kind of an advantage for me, but me tearing my ACL, I really didn't get a chance to take advantage of it. But it was just like, these guys are not better than what I practiced against in Kentucky. And mind you, I was at Kentucky when we were, we weren't very good. 2011, we weren't very good, man. Like,
the pre-Stoops era.
Right at the beginning, man. And I was just like, okay, there's nothing like it, man. And I would love. I've been back. I go back as much as I can. Obviously, with my kids that I got out there, so I go back and see them. I go to the spring game here in a couple weeks, so I can see JJ his last spring game. But it's everything, man, is speed, man, just speed and strength from like everybody. Like, the people that you see on the bench are faster than the people you see on the field for the other team, and it just like gives you a extra, like, I mean, you're not even fast, bro. Like, you're not even strong. You know what I'm saying? So that's really the biggest difference in the coaching.
Yeah, no doubt. No, we got a donation here, SBC Bates. Thank you for the $10. He says every conference has 2 to 3 good teams and a bunch of trash. The difference in the SEC and everyone else is that their trash gets to claim that it's because they're in the SEC. Bates, while I know you're ribbing us, he's a longtime viewer of the channel, good guy. Here's what I will say: the smartest people in football, when we look at the end of the NFL draft, where the most guys are getting drafted out of, it's usually the SEC lapping. people, and that's a reason. Now, I have remained adamant that I thought Texas and Oklahoma would be able to make the transition to the SEC, because when I look at the Texas offensive line coach, I see Kyle Flood. When I look at the Oklahoma offensive line coach, I see Bill Beatonbow. And I'm like, well, those guys right there, I mean, there's as solid as you get on the offensive line. That transitional should, in theory, go well. Now, one of the things I'm super interested in hearing from you, man, is when it comes to recruiting, right? What are the separating factors that you think these kids are looking for? What has changed? What do you think is the biggest factors and from a recruiting standpoint?
So it used to be facilities, right? Facilities used to be like, man, Alabama, you're Alabama guy. Alabama used to like run laps around everybody. So it was just like back at that time, like, why would I go anywhere else when I can go to Bama? You know, and I can scan my eye and walk in a facility. Well, now everybody got that, right? So now it's really just kind of like, how do I connect with coaches, the recruiting? It was something I was talking to somebody the other day about when they was asking me about the Colorado situation, and I was like, I really wanted to see what Coach Prime did with his strength and conditioning, because those are the people that you really spend most of your time with as an athlete. Division I athlete, we spend more time with our strength and conditioning guys than we do anybody else. Probably not position coach. We see our position coaches, you know, 2, 3, 4 times a week maybe. But them strength and conditioning guys, we're every day. Every day we're gonna see them every day. So that, like I said, you just have to. If facilities is up to par. You know, if you can get a kid in and you can like, hey, you know, you can come here with us. We can do this for you. Okay, that kid got to buy in, right? So once the kid buy in, you know, you pretty much got him in the door. You just got to close the deal, right? But it really just kind of depends on, you know, each kid, you know, because every kid got their different kind of variables of what they want to see. But from what I've seen personally, just facilities, coaches, and those kids building a trust with the coach that they're going to.
Yeah, and you talked about your thoughts on Coach Prime and everything. Everybody on this panel, we've been talking a lot about Colorado, our expectations. Right. And one of the things I've talked about, you know, Coach Prime moves the needle. But then when you look at the staff he's assembled, there are some really impressive coaches. What's your thoughts on what's going down at Colorado right now?
So that's going to be crazy, in my opinion. I think this year, first year, they'll probably win like 6 or 7 games, in my opinion. Maybe more, just kind of depending on how fast they click on the offense.
That'd be a big turnaround.
Side of the ball. They'll do it because you got to. So what I try to tell people is, people think TCU is just going to be this hard game. They're not going to win. Well, TCU is really kind of in the same situation as Colorado. Like, they don't know about their quarterback per se, right? TCU lost a quarterback, lost a receiver, a couple other people going to go to the draft, so now you got to start over. And if you don't got a quarterback coach, especially in the Pac-12, you're gonna struggle a little bit. You know what I mean? So we'll see about the TCU game. I think they'll win 6 or 7 games. Like I said, depending on how they look, I think they'll be fine, because Coach Prime knows what he's doing. He's Deion Sanders, right? Like, people kind of forget who they talking about when you say coach. They got a celebrity on campus, like casually just walking around campus with Lil Wayne. Like I mean, come on, man. Like, there's nobody else like that. So, like you said, he's gonna move the needle. I've been watching their videos. The workouts is retarded. Coach Mo came from the University of Georgia, so he's got an SEC kind of background, and you can see it in his workouts. Coach Williams, I met once when he was at Georgia. So they're going to be fine. They may need, a couple games to get it going. Once they get it going and they get to the team that they're supposed to beat, they'll start beating. They'll win a game that they're supposed to lose, and they'll lose a game that they're supposed to win, just because it's new, right? Everything's new. So I think by next year, we won't even be having this conversation. They'll be top 25 for real. Seriously.
I love that. And PG, you've been real excited about Colorado. Anything you want to ask about that in particular?
No, because Colorado's just they're on another level right now. And they're going to be, if they go have any type of success on the field this year, that equals bowl game, these guys looking like they could be draft picks, right. Colorado's going to be scary on the recruiting trail.
Yeah. So like you said, draft picks. Like they got a couple guys that'll be drafted next year, man.
My biggest concern with Colorado is the guys, and you talked about it, jumping from conference to conference. These guys are coming from HBCs to a bigger level of competition. Can they handle that? Yes, they've been talented. Travis Hunter, everything like that. Shedeur Sanders, stuff like that. That's going to be my my thing that I want to see is can these guys put their money where their mouth is, so to speak, and go out there and shine on a bigger stage.
See, but I look at all the guys they went and got out of the transfer portal, like Cavassier Smoke, Jordan Dominic, who, by the way, I think is just going to be an absolute dog.
I'm talking about the guys that they brought from Jackson State.
Yeah, but you're looking at a small portion.
Yeah, that's not a small portion when you're talking about your starting quarterback.
Yeah, but you're talking about a small portion.
That's a very big portion, PG.
Listen, they got a lot of trenches guys from the SEC.
Yeah, but trenches guys can't throw a football. PG.
RJ, I'm telling you, this is just a bunch of friends sitting around talking football.
I've never seen an offensive lineman throw a football.
Here's what I'll say about Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. I actually honestly think it will be an adjustment, but what people don't understand is every year people come from lower levels and come to D1. Like you got JUCO, you got the transfer portal, all that.
Not dominant.
Yeah, so it's really like
Jared Verse
takes a
one out of.
They'll be fine, right? Like I said, you got JUCO kids coming up all the time. It happens all the time. It's just not as publicized. But JUCO is just the same level, man. JUCO is a little bit more than the same level as HBCU ball. So I think they'll be fine. I do agree with you that it'll take a little bit to get going. It'll take like a game or two. But Coach Prime is Deion Sanders. And I mean, it's like I'm pretty sure he's telling his son, like, all right, you got to understand it's just a little faster. You know what I'm saying? I've been watching it. He's got to get the ball out just a little bit quicker. He'll be fine. Things that he'll learn, coming up. A little bit quick on your releases, a little bit quick on your reads. He'll be fine. I think they'll be fine, though, man. I really do. I think they're gonna be fine.
He's working out with the GOAT. He's working out with Tom Brady. So I'm sure he'll learn a couple things this offseason.
Yeah, but Tom Brady can't throw the football for him.
And I don't know if you guys watched Jackson State last year, but you could tell a difference between last year and the year before in the way he throws the ball, his release point, his mechanics. You can tell that he's not just working out with Tom Brady, because you can work out with anybody you want to, but you actually receiving the information, processing and putting to the field. So you can see that happens with him, and I think that he's going to be able to take that step to the next level because he did it last year, so he'll be fine.
Well, and something important to notice about Shedeur Sanders is he was recruited by Alabama, Florida State, Georgia, Oregon, all of these elite schools. Hey, it doesn't matter. He went to go play for his dad. He got recruited by some of the most elite schools and the most elite coaches in the country.
Yeah, he wasn't a bum by any means. You go watch his film.
He was a 4-star athlete.
Well,
he was that guy. So he was a 4. So it wasn't like he was just
in Texas.
Nick Williams. I don't know if y'all caught it on one of the videos, but Nick Williams actually mentioned, "Hey, I went out and recruited Shedeur when he was in college, and that's how I met Coach Prime." So the big guys were coming after him. He just wanted to play with his pops, and you can't fault him for that.
Well, one of the things I've been looking at with Colorado that's so interesting is the date April 22nd. Huge date in college football. Oklahoma's hosting their spring game. Alabama's having theirs, but only one game, to my knowledge, thus far is being televised, and it's Colorado.
And is going to have an elite 5-star list, by the way.
Oh, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's
their visitor list on the spring game, which is, by the way, going to be sold out if it's not already.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's going to be.
Here is my point, right? You have people like, I think everybody on this panel, we're going to watch because we're curious. We're excited. We can't wait to see what's going to happen. You have your Colorado fans who are going to be watching, and then you have your people who are hoping Coach Prime fails. But guess what they're going to be doing? Watching. You want to know what the common denominator is? Everybody's watching. Right? He moves the needle. Whether you like it or not, everybody's eyes are glued to it. And at the end of the day, he's doing it in a positive manner. And I will say this. I know the videos going out about like kicking the player out the weight room, right? I had someone message me and they're like, that's not uncommon, right? It's just that it's not seen, but like that's coaching. That's college locker rooms. It is what it is. What was your thoughts on that?
I've seen it a million times. I don't even understand. That's why that's the thing that gets me. I watch some of the stuff that coach is doing, and it happens all the time. Like you talked about the kid get kicked out because of his socks. I'm not gonna say any names, but when I first got to University of Louisville, there was a highly touted 4-star that was coming into University of Louisville. He just couldn't pass his test, man. And the summer test, like first day you come in, you got to do the running test. He couldn't pass his running test, man. He gave him like 2 times. He said, "Man, you gone." And I'm like, "Wait, that's the best player that y'all bought in. You just gonna let him go? You gonna send him back to Florida, kick him out?" So it happens like you wouldn't believe. You know what I'm saying? But people just don't see it because they aren't on that other side. So they think it's like something that Deion's doing. It's like, nah, man, he's just being, old school. Like he said in the video, he's old school. He's, you know what I'm saying? He's really not doing anything that's like fluttering me. I mean,
he sounds just like Bobby Bowden when he talks.
Yeah.
That's someone made that point, and it was really interesting. Yeah, that's a good one.
He literally sounds just like Bobby Bowden. Remember, that was his coach when he played at Florida State. It's literally just a similar mentality in everything he does. Good, bad, or indifferent, however you feel about it. But that's really all his rhetoric is really old school Bobby Bowden type stuff.
Now, here's the difference, though, between what Coach Prime's doing and what Venables is doing here in Oklahoma. Coach Prime just makes it public on video. I mean, Venables literally had a junior day on a workout day for these guys so that he could show the recruits, this is the work you're going to have to put in when you come here. And there ain't no slack just because you're a 5-star. Except Coach Prime's just doing that on video, on social media, so that he can weed these guys out before they even get there for a visit.
True. Hold on. I love that point. I actually like this point a lot because in college football recruiting, there's a recruiting, but there's also selecting guys that aren't going to be a fit. That doesn't mean they aren't great players, but you have to be a fit, right? Like RJ, you came on here, first thing you started talking about in terms of recruiting was relationships. Yeah. If you don't have those good relationships, doesn't matter if you're the number 1 defensive lineman in the nation and Georgia and Bama at your front yard. Mm-hmm. You don't have good relationships with them, you'll go somewhere else and you'll eat. Putting it out there is almost selecting the guys that are going to want to come there. I answer this question all the time. Whenever people say, why would a 5-star go to Alabama and sit behind another 5-star? I said, because what you view as a nuisance, that guy views as an opportunity. He views that as an opportunity to go and bash his head against the grindstone against the best players in the nation. He views that differently than you. I'm not saying one way's right, one way's wrong. It's just there are different mentalities, and PG loved the point. You're almost selecting the mentalities of the guys you want to have. You got to embrace it.
Smart. Good point.
Now, one of the things I did want to talk about this evening, guys, I don't know if y'all have checked it out. RJ, I don't know if you've seen it. Notre Dame, right? And kind of bleeding into this second-year head coaches. Because we have Dan Lanning at Oregon going into his second year. We have Mario Cristobal with Miami going into his second year with the Hurricanes. You have Napier at Florida, Brent Venables at Oklahoma, and Marcus Freeman with Notre Dame. So, RJ, I do want to hear your take. Like, which of these second-year coaches are you most excited about? And then, secondly, Notre Dame recruiting is going through a bit of a wild period right now. They lost 5-star Peyton Bowen, lost 5-star Kean Keeley, and then Brandon Hillman, who signed, requested a release of his national letter of intent, and now he's with Michigan. So we need to talk about some Notre Dame recruiting. But first and foremost, out of all those second-year head coaches, which is the ones you're most compelled by, RJ?
No, I'm not showing no love or no, but actually Oklahoma. I actually got to meet Brent, Coach Venables. When I was at U of L, we played against him a couple times. He's a good dude, man. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he wants. He's kind of like Coach Prime, a little bit more than Prime. Like, dude, don't play no games. Like, you're going to have to get it together or you're going to be out the door. It's his way or the highway, man. Like, it ain't no game. So, really what you want to see out of coaches is, like, first year and then, like, a jump in the second year, right? So, Notre Dame had that thing where they were kind of trash at the beginning, but they kind of got it together going down the pipe. That's a good thing to see. So they'll be good coming up. Especially got the transfer quarterback in, they'll be fine. Oklahoma, what you saw was like a lot of people that he thought was going to be that guy, but wasn't really that guy. So all right, F it. Let's clean the slate. I'll just go out and recruit one of the best classes in the country. We'll bring y'all in, and we'll get it going. They'll be fine. The quarterback that they got from Jackson
Arnold, right here in my backyard, Denton, Texas. Yes, sir.
I think he's gonna start. I don't think Gabriel's gonna start. I think Jackson. He's a good kid. I watched his film. He's tough.
He is, man. I've pulled up on some of his games. He is wild. I don't know if you peeped this. He had a play his senior year where he just dipped out on them. He had 21.38 miles per hour running. Like, this is a dude.
He's tough. I like his film. I'm not gonna lie to y'all, man.
Dude.
I'm not sold on Gabriel. Gabriel's more of a veteran choice. But if you get Arnold in there now, y'all gonna be straight. Why delay it? Honestly, why delay it? Gabriel, y'all just want Gabriel in there just so what?
Jeff Levy, that's why you delay it.
Man, put him in there, man. Put him, because y'all got something special. I think he's the second best quarterback out of this class behind Manning. That's just my personal opinion. I've watched the film. I think he's that good. So just put him in. Honestly, y'all, I see y'all shaking y'all. He's that good. Y'all got
Yeah, but Dylan Gabriel's that good too.
No,
No,
he's
he's
not.
not.
He's all right.
No, he's not.
Hey,
not.
I'm gonna be honest.
He's all right.
I think what a lot of people were missing in 2022 with Dylan Gabriel was he was coming off a left clavicle fracture, so he's got a little bit of rust from not playing really that last season. Then he goes out and gets a concussion and has to come back. So he doesn't really have a whole year to work off his rust. And I think, this offseason, he really gets an opportunity to work more with Jalil Farouk, again, who he's been in the system with a year. You've got some of these wide receivers now being in a second year in the Levy system. So I think everything's going to flow better for that offense, which will make Dylan Gabriel better in 2023. And so I think, he might not be on the talent level of Jackson Arnold, but he's going to be able to put up gaudy numbers in this offense if the wide receivers can kind of get it together under the Jeff Levy offense. And that takes 2 years for these guys to be able to really go in there and learn what Levy wants them to do.
I'm going to jump in here real quick, Jay, and then I'll pass it to you because I want to address this. Jimmy, unless you might have came in late. RJ, yeah, he knows football. He played for Kentucky. He played for Louisville. He's played Arena. He's NFL. You name it. The guy is an encyclopedia of football. And before I pass it back to you, here's what I will say. PG, I completely agree. It takes 2 years to really get to know him. Are we forgetting that Jeff Levy and Dylan Gabriel have worked together before they got to Oklahoma? He was the only person on this team that had any understanding.
But Cale Gundy got fired.
Cale Gundy doesn't catch passes, PG. Stop.
It doesn't matter. He coached the wide receivers, and the wide receivers all season.
But that's offensive coordinator.
Stop.
That's offensive coordinator.
That's
He's the one
take,
putting them.
Again, that's my point is they were in a new system. Their wide receiver coach got fired. Like, you have to give, Dylan Gabriel a little bit of grace here because, again, Drum has mentioned it many times. If these wide receivers catch the passes that they did not catch, Oklahoma probably wins 3 or 4 of those 5 games, that were that close.
What about the turnovers?
But I'll tell you this about Dylan.
He had 5 turnovers.
That y'all kind of missing. You're speaking on it like he's kind of a senior, bro. Like, he don't got no more eligibility. So it's like, honestly, if you keep him out there to put up them great numbers, that's cool. But what you gonna get, right? So just go ahead and put Arnold in, man, and get the future started because you got 3 more years on Arnold. So just go ahead and put him in there, see what he look like, right? I just don't think that Dylan Gabriel is going to show you something that he didn't show us at UCF, right? Because I actually watched some UCF football because one of the kids that transferred to UCF, Joey Gatewood, was a quarterback at UK. So I got to know him a little bit. He transferred down there. Like, you've seen the roof. Like, there's nothing else for Gabriel. He can't go no higher.
Gabriel's hit his ceiling.
Get him out of there. Put the young kid in and let him develop that. The same thing that you're talking about. Let your younger guys develop it for your future, right? Because Gabriel's not your future. Gabriel will be there for 6 more months. He's out of there. So put Jackson in there and let him go.
My argument is look at Caleb Williams as a true freshman. Yeah, he looked great, but he when it really came down to needing to win games against really good teams, Baylor and Oklahoma State, he struggled because he's a true freshman, which, I mean, get it. The kid's an incredible talent.
Right.
I think it's better to have your true freshman sit a year, get an opportunity to learn the system, put on weight, get through the whole strength and conditioning program. Dylan Gabriel threw for 3,100 yards last year. I can't tell you the amount of college football teams that would have took Dylan Gabriel as their starting quarterback.
I'm not
It
saying
came
he's
down
above,
to the receivers.
But how many of those would take Dylan Gabriel if they thought they had someone better?
Right.
So let me chime in, and I don't think you're wrong at the thought. I don't think Jackson Arnold starts next season. And the only reason is I'm going to agree with PG, and especially with Drew with this on it. It's going to take him about a year to get through Schmitty's workout system because, you know, RJ as a trainer takes your body about 6 months to a year to really adjust and actually get acclimated to working out. I studied kinesiology and health studies in college, so it takes some time. But I think Jackson Arnold's going to be ahead of the curve. I can see him potentially taking the job late in the season, but I think Dylan has it mainly because he knows the system. And this year, they don't have fear of him getting hurt and not having a backup. So if he can actually be a lot more riskier with his play. He can do another Nebraska play and run 67 yards for a touchdown, and everybody be comfortable with it because we do have a capable backup. Now, I think the only thing that and then this is what PG was talking about, and I agree with, and watching the film on him, the one problem the wide receivers had was they were pulling up on their routes a lot. Drew, you were talking about his fumbles. He had 2 fumbles, and he had, 6 interceptions. He had 8 total turnovers, which is pretty low for what you would get at this level, what you would have thought you would have got out of Dylan Gabriel. The biggest thing with him, though, is that the receivers were pulling up on their routes. They more so didn't know how to run their routes properly. And I think that's more
How
so
many
just
freshman wide
confusion.
receivers did you have? That's only a valid take if you had freshman wide receivers.
But
so
that's
they
not
didn't
the,
know how to run their
that's
routes?
not the point. If
We
you
had
have Kel
one-
Gundy,
We had
But you
one.
said they didn't know how to
veteran
run their
PG,
route.
really.
Let me tell you something.
But
you keep saying Kel Gundy. Kel Gundy's only coached receivers for a couple years.
We've only got one. We only had really one veteran receiver, and that was Marvin Mims. And you saw him drop like 3 touchdowns.
And I actually saw. Okay, but Drew, here's Jay. This is the problem, though. You've just opened yourself up in a bad way for your argument.
Okay.
I think one of the most consistent wide receivers you had was Farouk, who didn't take advantage of Cale Gundy's coaching. He would have been the beneficiary of the other coaching, and he was a go-to for Jeff Lebby.
Wasn't Farouk here?
Yes,
last
but he
year
wasn't
underneath?
playing the same amount. He got almost all of his touches this year or at the tail end of last year. So I'm saying he doesn't get your same beneficiary of a Marvin Mims or a Theo Weiss. The problem is you're giving me veteran wide receivers and saying, hey guys, gee golly gee gosh, 5 games in, this guy who's been here 5 years didn't know how to run a route. So Cale Gundy was doing what for 4 years?
So let's pull that back. Was Jeff Lebby the coach last year?
But no, we're
Was he the
talking.
one calling the plays?
But hold on. But
because the whole play calling was everything under Lincoln Riley. And remember, we talked about this before.
But
Lincoln
Jay,
Riley's
when I said
offensive
that
system
before,
is
you
complete-
said that the wide receiver coach needed to be talked about. So
I
is it
didn't say
so is it
anything
the
about
wide receiver coach when it's Jeff
I didn't
Lebby,
say
or-
anything about the wide receiver coach at all.
I
said the wide
something about
receivers.
coach.
I said
Sure,
the wide
but-
receivers.
okay, but
PG
now-
did.
But we
My
haven't.
point is that underneath Lebby's system, they were pulling up on their routes. You could
So
see
then it's
it.
Lebby. It's not so much the loss of a wide receiver coach.
Here's my thing. If you have Kel Gundy, who's experienced
Well, that's
with
a valid
Lebby,
question.
I think you have a better
anything
result
about
than
wide
having
receiver
a
coach,
new Washington, who's the new guy to be the wide receivers coach with a new offensive coordinator. That didn't work well for our offense.
So
I
what
think
you're
if
saying is you need somebody there to hold your hand and tell you what to do every single time.
No, I think you need experience with the coaching staff together,
Well,
and
I'll
I don't
put it
think
like
they had
this.
that. They did not have stability.
That's fair. There's
That's
one
huge.
person in this panel that's played college football.
That's huge.
What's your thoughts on this discussion, RJ?
Really, it's kind of tough to not. I'm not in the Oklahoma locker room, so I don't know what exactly those kids are doing. But most of the times, people like watch a game or something, and then they'll be like, "Man, he's running the wrong route." It's this coach or whatever. Nah, a lot of times it's the kids, man. When you're a player, you get like kind of big-headed. So like, I can teach you the most, everything you need to know, right? Every route you need to run, every set you need to, what yards you need to set it at, where I want you to break in, out. I can teach you all of that, but unless you translate it, so on the field, that really necessarily don't go against the coach. Sometimes players are like, I don't know why this dude coming in here trying to teach me something new. I'm already All-American. I'm not listening to you. I'm going to do what I've been doing for 3-4 years. You know what I mean? So it really, I have to be in that locker room to kind of understand what's going on. But just looking, I think it's more of that than it is a coaching, right? Because every coach brings something to the table, like, or they should. They should bring something to the table.
Some bring technique, some
yeah,
bring skills.
You should know that. You should know how to coach that. Now, if your players aren't giving you that effort, then probably because you lost your players or the players, again, don't trust you. It's a whole lot that goes into that. You know what I mean? So we'll see this year, man. Like I said, I think Oklahoma going to be okay, man. They've got a great coach who really I think they're going to surprise some people this year. I think they're going to do what some college football playoff, maybe it's what I'm looking at for Coach V, but
we all think OU's going to have a great season.
Now, I have a question though. If you switch from DG to Jackson Arnold, let's say at the beginning of the season, you're now switching the quarterback on these wide receivers again. So does that play a factor into the wide receivers potentially not performing as well because they're having to learn a new quarterback and they're having to learn his timing and everything? Because someone mentioned it up there. Like maybe these wide receivers weren't 100% with DG's timing because you're switching from Caleb Williams to DG, which, by the way, is not a comparable talent. Caleb Williams is generational. DG's not that. So, like, if you switch to Jackson Arnold, does that potentially mess up the timing with these wide receivers that they kind of got maybe a little bit all year last year with practice, games, bowl games, all of that? Does that play a factor at all?
It could just a little bit, but you got to remember, we practice for a reason, right?
That's what Baby Ben said.
If I get this new kid in here, and I mean, the only real difference you will see from a quarterback that might make timing off is like if you got a left-hander to a right-handed or a right-handed to a left-hand quarterback.
Which is what you're doing with this situation.
So, right, that's what I was about to say. Yeah, that's what I was about to say. So that'll kind of be, that might throw it off. But if we're in practice and I understand how you throw and where you need me already, it's not going to be too much of an adjustment. Maybe a half a game and we should be going. We should be down the road, right? So it's not as big of a you'll see some effect, but you're thinking it's going to last for the whole season, and it shouldn't. If it lasts more than one game, there's a problem. Like, when you move, what's going on?
I think when you move from hand in hand at quarterback, it feels like it's more of a ripple effect because your offensive line has to readjust themselves. Because your left-handed quarterback, your right tackle is your blindside guy, so it's got to be your best guy that's going to protect the backside. Right. Then you switch it. Not everybody can play, both sides of the ball, which OU is O-line U. We're infamous for doing that. But I think it's a big ripple effect with everybody having to readjust themselves down to the running backs and everything. But I don't think that's going to be a big problem. I just don't see Jackson Arnold walking in and taking the job day one. I can see a switch later, though.
Not day one, but really soon he'll be there.
I can agree with you there. I can see it.
Now, the other thing that I think a lot of people are overlooking with DG is, last year you didn't really have a solid number 2 quarterback because, Booty got hurt. Bevel just was not the guy. So now that you have Jackson Arnold, DG can be more of that dual threat quarterback where he can really, kind of run if he needs to. And you don't really have to worry about not having a secondary running back now or a quarterback. Does that play a factor into this game at all? Because now it opens up DG like, oh, well, Oklahoma's not afraid to run their quarterback now because they got another guy sitting in the backfield that can sling the ball. Does that potentially play a factor in speeding this offense up and making DG better?
It shouldn't, because you're trying to win games at the end of the day, right? So I want to roll out my best offense and defense every day, week in, week out, because we got to win, right? At the end of the day, college football about winning games, you know what I mean? So we not, if we feel like he's capable of doing it, do it.
Well, this is a point.
If he can run, let him go, right? If we got to put the backup in, we'll deal with it when it comes time. But right now, we got to beat Texas. We down 7, run the rollout, right? So it really just, so it really don't have anything to do with it. But I see your point a little bit that it may, I don't know. I don't think it should have any effect on it. Honestly, I think you go play the game because you're trying to win. You know what I mean? I'm just not a big Dylan Gabriel guy, man. Like I said, I've seen enough, and he's good, man, but he's not an elite talent. So,
I agree with you there.
Yeah, so like we've seen, like there's nothing more he can do to put himself or Oklahoma over the top. Like, boom, that's it. Y'all there, like y'all hitting the top, like with him. So
if Oklahoma can't go win 9 or 10 games this season, though, with Dylan Gabriel, then we have a problem. Because this schedule is so easy with Dylan Gabriel, you should be able to win 9 or 10 games. You should need Jackson Arnold to do that.
I don't think it's the schedule. I think the problem was, and we all know what the problem was, is that defense. Our defense did not hold any of the leads that we had later in the season. If the defense can move up from bottom, 100 in the bottom 100 down, if it can move into the 50s, we'll be fine.
Oh, yeah.
Offensively, we're going to still be a top 15 offense with DG or Jackson Arnold, guaranteed. Right. But as long as our defense moves up, that's honestly the needle we need to move. That's the biggest concern. Like we can talk quarterback and stuff. Our concern is that defense.
Complementary football
moves up, we're good. Yeah, we got to have both sides. Yep. I mean, it's a team sport. You can't have one without the other. One person.
Well, and you've seen it across the college football landscape for the last 10 years. Exactly. Yeah, there's been some great offenses, but they've complemented each other well with great defense. Like at Georgia, you can sit there and talk about their offense and Stetson Bennett and how well they run. Look what they've done. They've been able to stop people. Alabama over the years have been able to stop people. LSU, even LSU during that year in 19, they had a really good defense under Dave Aranda.
Clemson, same thing. Exact same thing.
Well, here's one thing I will say. How many one-score losses did Oklahoma have? And I mean, in theory, if we're saying that they had a top 50 defense, what are you losing now? 2 of those? If I'm trying to be as objective and in the middle as possible, I'll give you 3 wins out of those 2 losses. And I think everybody here at a top 50 defense, we all walk away happy from this conversation.
But that's the point I was trying to make earlier. Yes, that's the point I was trying to make earlier. If the wide receivers, Marvin Mims doesn't drop 2 of those passes that were touchdowns if he would have caught them.
But that's Kel Gundy's fault, right? That's Kel Gundy's fault, right?
There's concentration issues from the kid. He got
no, it's not.
Ball, bro.
I just think there was a lot going on in that locker room last year with having to learn new offense, not changing your wide receiver coach to a guy that's having to take the job for the first time as the head guy. I think there was a lot playing against the wide receivers last year, and I think you're going to see a lot better.
Did you see them use that? Did you see them use that as an excuse though? Did you see one wide receiver come out last year and use that as an excuse?
Well, here's what I will say. Right?
You did not.
I want to get back to a point Jay was making because I cut him off. But I want to get it back to him. PG, I would be much more inclined to be like it was the wide receiver coach if you didn't have a guy that's been in that room and Marvin Mims for multiple years. And because then at that point, if it's really the wide receiver coach, then what you're telling me is the wide receiver coaching has been suspect for a while because he's been there.
I mean, maybe it has. Maybe Kel Gundy got complacent and maybe kind of.
I don't think so. I think that the offensive coordinator. I think it's the new offensive coordinator more so than
I think it's a play call. Yep. It's the complexity of the scheme. You got to remember, Levy's system is way more complex. I was listening to Joel Klatt talk about it. He was breaking down the differences between Lincoln Riley offense and the Levy one. And Levy's is more ratio-based, whereas Riley's is really free-flowing. It's a lot easier for wide receivers to get. He schemes you butt naked open all the time. Like Ohio State does, similar to even Alabama whenever you got those elite receivers out there and you didn't have Bill O'Brien as offensive coordinator.
Oh, don't do that
Lincoln Riley in it. I mean, a lot of those, like even Lane Train and Sarkisian were infamous for being able to scheme your guys wide open. But with Levy taking a lot of the Art Briles Baylor type offense, it's a ratio piece. So Gabriel has to read which side. Josh Heupel's offense was the exact same. And so Levy takes elements of those guys, but he really is similar to Art. He's like his father-in-law. And so because it's so more complex, I think that threw off the receivers more than anything because they were used to just running a free-flow offense that was a lot easier to figure out. That was my take when Joel was explaining. I was like, that makes sense. They looked confused sometimes. Whenever we were running good, it was because we were getting really good blocks downfield.
Exactly.
Then some plays the receivers didn't block.
Well,
it's like they were confused on where to go.
And to Jay's point, I got a chance to talk to 2 former players who played for Lincoln Riley and who now sits in in some of that new scheme and some of the stuff that Oklahoma does now. And that's the exact point Jay just made, was two different
It's complex.
Yep. And so it takes players, some time to get in, regardless of who's the running backs coach, receivers coach, whatever it is. It's everybody is learning it together, players and coaches alike.
So then I said that at the beginning, right? Jeff
Yeah, but you kept coming back to Cale Gundy.
Well, because the point I was trying to make was, if you have a tenured wide receiver coach in that room, they can help the wide receivers understand Lebby's scheme a little bit more than just maybe an offensive coordinator.
So what you're saying is he has to hold their hand and watch film with them, and they don't understand without him.
That's why you have.
That's exactly what you're saying right now.
Drew.
That's why you have position
coaches. I think what that statement is. This is kind of like what RJ was making mention of a minute ago. Is that when you bring in certain coaches are better at teaching scheme and teaching like technique than others. I don't think Cale was that good at teaching like the technique of the route running. It was more I think he was a good coach in what he did. I just don't think the route running piece was his strongest suit. More so, we just had ridiculous athletes playing out there at wide receiver. And so I think that now another coach I guess you could probably more. Emmett Jones is probably more stable, I guess you could say.
Yeah, but at the same time, you also had Coach Washington, who has been in that room for a couple of years and who has worked with them seemingly just like a position coach.
Oh, no, and that's fair.
Regardless,
I just don't think that he was that good at it either. You know what I'm saying? I think that may have been the deficiency we had at the coaching position, in which why we didn't bring him back. We didn't try to retain him.
This is what I will say, because Matt, very valid question. Why so many drop passes? Why so many running wrong routes? Why did the receivers look so lost? Not the right receiver coach. I love Bama's wide receiver coach, Holloman Wiggins. I love what he does, right? But Bama's receivers have had drops. They were, inconsistent. At the end of the day, though,
that's Bill O'Brien.
Boom. Right? Like, because Bill O'Brien was employing option routes, right? He was employing option routes. He was telling the wide receivers, hey, if the cornerback is sitting on your route and you're running a go, now you're running a comeback. The problem is the wide receiver has to figure this out the same time the quarterback figures this out.
That's the biggest thing about it. Like, you give people options at that level, college level, like, ain't too many people gonna be able to pick up on what you're talking about, especially on offense, man. So you make it cut and dry, just like Tennessee's offense. You make it cut and dry. We're gonna put this dude here. He gonna run this 1,000-yard sprint. He gonna just run past everybody, and we're just gonna keep tossing TDs. You can't make it no option. You know what I'm saying? That's why when you look at Alabama, their offense is like, what the fuck?
Yeah, No, I've been saying it all year long. Man. I've been on this panel just like pulling out my hair, and everybody's like, Ty, what happened to all the Bama wide receivers? They were so good. And I'm like, they're still talented, man.
You just got to take the option stuff away from the receivers and put it into Bryce Young. So like Bryce Young post snap, pre-snap on the run, whatever he need to do, like don't put it on the receiver, because now you taking a receiver that's probably a 5-star guy but don't have a 5-star mind. So now he just out there, he don't know what he doing, but he just gonna run around anyway because that's all he know. You know what I'm saying? Like he gonna forget the option part. So it really that's why I was like, Bill O'Brien gotta go. What he does will work on the NFL level, because at the NFL level, every receiver's smart as hell. Like, you know what I mean? So you can't do that at the college level. Like you got to take that to the NFL. So it was a divorce waiting to happen.
Yeah, and it's actually funny. Go ahead, Jake. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's probably one of the few things in the world that I always agree with Colin Cowherd on. He says this, though, is like quarterbacks in the NFL, difference between NFL and college ones. In college, you're throwing wide open guys. In the NFL, you have to throw your guys open, so it requires more skill set. Defenses, if you got guys playing in the zone in college, they seem to just sit in like one spot because they think this is my area. I'm going to stay here. In the pros, they automatically shift because they know where they're supposed to
where you sit.
Migrate. It's that thought. It's like you said, RJ, you can't. It's like with your kids. If you got young kids, don't give your kids more than 3 options. If you give them more than 3 options or 3 instructions, they're going to forget the first 2 every time and only do one of them. You can only give them 2. Stop at 2. Say, do this and this. If you want them the options for food, give them 2 options. Don't give them a plethora because they're going to do this.
Absolutely.
Every time. And it's just as you grow and get older, you start to narrow down your choices automatically, and it's fascinating to even hear you say that, because that's the first thing I thought. It's They're thinking too much. They're nervous about making a mistake, and
That
that's
comes from coaching,
terrifying to a
too.
young guy.
Yeah, that comes from coaching too. Like especially Alabama, when you can't make a mistake and you'll end up coming out. But I don't think that's more of it. Like seriously, bro. Like Alabama got them. Like if you mess up, don't worry about it. Sit him down. We got another cat coming in here that was a 5-star that's probably faster. You know what I'm saying? So you got to be on your P's and Q's. But coaching wise, that's really like one of the big things. Is like kind of in college, simple is better. Like don't try to be extra. Like it is what it is. Like I said, Tennessee's offense so simple, bro. Like, and they scored 1 million points. Like, you don't got to do the option route and stuff. Like I said, it's good at the NFL because now you get to the NFL, those are the top of the top guys, so they have that already ingrained in their head, and then it's more ingrained into your head. So now you know what I'm saying. But when you get to college, everybody isn't that smart, right? Most people rely on their talent. And you can get by with that to a degree in college if you're that guy. But you can't get by in the NFL like that. You have to have everything. You know what I mean? So it makes it different.
You know what's funny is last year, not this past season, Slade Bolden on Alabama's roster. If it was 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10, any sort of 3rd and long situation, I could almost guarantee you where they were going, and it was Slade Bolden. And that's when I started picking up on these option routes. Slade Bolden came to Alabama, and he was an athlete. He'd played quarterback in high school. So then they put him at wide receiver, and he was the first down machine on 3rd and long because he would find a hole in the zone and sit. And that's when I was like, oh, Bill O'Brien has them doing option routes, and Slade Bolden gets it because he played quarterback.
Right. So he understands what needs to be done in certain situations, 3rd down and long. I need to sit there because this guy's he's 5 yards back, he's 5 yards up, he's 5 yards in and out. Yep. Really just kind of depends. But when you run an option route, it takes a lot more processing than what you guys are probably thinking that it does. Like whatever you guys are thinking that it does, times 10 get to the next level. Seriously, because the speed of the game is faster. So now I got to think faster, play fast. You see Deion Sanders talking about like think faster, play faster, react faster, like everything faster. So now I got to be as fast as I already am. Plus I got to think as fast. Like it's complicated, and that's why a lot of receivers and them kind of offenses be like, I don't get it. And then you see them go somewhere else where they just run streaks, and then they turn into a Heisman winner. You know what I mean? So it's different.
Yeah, it's totally different. Well, boys, we've been at this for an hour and 30 minutes. I want to let everybody have their chance, RJ, something we do. Let people know where they can find you. If you want people coming to your Instagram, your Twitter, plug yourself up. But also, I wanted to give you the opportunity to just have any last closing remarks. And if at all possible, I'd love to get you on the podcast again here soon, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Just let me know. I'll clear up something else for you guys again. It was great to come on here and talk football with you guys. You can find me on Instagram at _bumpers. It's my nickname. My Twitter, as Ty found out, I really don't use it. Like, I ain't tweeted since like 2011.
Yeah.
my Twitter old, man. So if you want me, just hit me on Instagram, _bumpers. And, I train off there too. So if you're kind of like in the South or whatever, I'm traveling somewhere, you can hit me up and we can make that happen. You just if you're trying to do anything, man, just keep going, man. Make sure that you understand that you're gonna have bumps on every road, man. It don't matter if you're trying to play football, if you're trying to play basketball, if you just want to be a good husband, you want to be a good worker at McDonald's. It don't matter. It's just gonna be bumps in every road. Just do not stop at the bump and look at it. All right, stop, look at the bump. All right, climb over it and keep going. Right, you got to keep going. You got to keep progressing. That's for everybody with everything. You know what I'm saying? That's the biggest thing with me is just trying to get people to be better people, not just better athletes, better people in general.
I love that, man. And that's a huge thing in training, right? I think that's so, and I love that you talked about how it's almost more rewarding what you're doing now. And I think that's awesome. That's part of the reason why I wanted to do this. I came from a town that didn't have much and saw my two best friends go play college football. All of a sudden, that town had a lot more hope. So I can't imagine from your side how personal it must be. And that's just incredible, man. Thank you for hopping on here with us. And like I said, I'd love to have you back anytime you're available. We'll plan something for sure.
Yep.
PG, Drew, where can the people find you?
Yeah, y'all can find me on YouTube, The PG Show, all one word. You guys can also find me on Apple, Google, or Spotify there as well. You're just going to miss out on the shorter 5-minute videos if you only go listen to the podcast. But love to have you pull up there as well. You guys can also find me on Twitter at the PG Show _. Listen, we got some commitments dropping here in the next month and a half, depending on how those go. They might come a little quicker. And then we've also got some interviews coming out with some 5-star recruits. And definitely in 2025, guys, we got a lot of stuff coming out for that class. So you guys need to be pulling up and paying attention to the content.
Yeah, always great stuff from PG. Drew, where can the people find all your stuff?
Well, I'm all over the place. As you know, I do 2 podcasts. One is the Under Official Review podcast. Me and my buddy Zach Merrill talk all things NFL and college football. And then if you want just strictly OU content, the Anything OU podcast I do with my buddy Christian Williams. You can find us on all the major platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Apple, Spotify, all that stuff. And then, go over and bug PG on Twitter and get some trolls going because he loves to we all love to argue. So I'm all
That's
about
what we do.
Yeah, I'm all about it. So we poke fun and all that stuff, but we at the end of the day, we're good friends and we love to get on here and talk about what we're passionate about. So I always enjoy it.
Drew and I will never see eye to eye on this whole wide receiver coach thing.
But we love the heck out of each other. So I always enjoy being around PG and everything like that. We'll be doing some cool stuff. Actually, I'll be talking to him about it. But coming in April with some things. So be pretty cool. And we got some really good OU interviews coming up on the Anything OU podcast. So if you haven't yet, go check out the Mark Clayton interview. You OU fans over there. We did a really good interview with him, former player, 1st-round draft pick of the Ravens. And, so should have won the Biletnikoff, but he got robbed by a guy named Larry Fitzgerald. So,
yeah.
Hey, he hit 1,600 yards and still didn't win.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that is a wild one here for a receiver. All right, y'all. Well, I don't want to keep us here all night. That's a problem, RJ, we have. We'll stay on this for hours. So I'm going to let us all get out of here. Thank everybody for tuning in. Y'all know I say it every time. Y'all make this stream so much fun with your interactions, your comments, and we sure do appreciate it. So be sure to go check out everybody on the panel. RJ, once again, man, thank you so much for coming on here. Anytime you'd like, I'd love to have you back on. And until next time, we'll see you. That's it.
Yeah.
Peace. And now we have